Ladies and gentlemen, the 31st anniversary of the Battle of Mogadishu commemoration will begin shortly. Please begin to take your seats and please silence all cell phones and electronic devices at this time. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Specialist June Park, your narrator for today's event. On behalf of the Commanding General, United States Army Aviation Center of Excellence, and Fort Novosel, Major General Claire A. Gill, welcome to the commemoration for the 31st anniversary of the Battle of Mogadishu. Joining us from the USA's command team are Major General Claire A. Gill, Commanding General, Mr. Robert C. Dewar, Deputy to the Commanding General, CW5 and Mrs. Michael A. Corsaro, Chief Warrant Officer of the Aviation Branch, and Command Sergeant Major and Mrs. Kirk R. Coley, Command Sergeant Major of the Aviation Branch. Distinguished guests in attendance are the Honorable Barry Moore, Alabama's 2nd Congressional District, U.S. House of Representatives, Honorable William Cooper, Mayor of Enterprise. Please rise for the invocation given by the USA's Garrison Chaplain, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Kennis, and remain standing for the playing of the national anthem.
Let us pray. Lord, it is fitting that we ask for your help today as we honor this occasion and wade into the deep water of remembrance and reflection of the historic Battle of Mogadishu, a day when tyranny and chaos were met with justice and bravery delivered at the hand of our nation's finest. And Lord, for those who gave their lives, enlarge our capacity to honor their memory today by renewing our commitment to justice and the solemn vow to fight and win our nation's wars. Lord, we look to you for these things. God, be with our service members who are in harm's way at this very hour. Grant them victory over the enemy. To God alone be the glory. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to have the privilege of remembering the warriors who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of our great nation. On October 3rd, 1993, U.S. Special Operation Forces from Task Force Ranger, operating in Mogadishu, Somalia, launched Operation Gothic Serpent, a daytime mission into the Bakara market to capture high-priority targets loyal to war criminal Mohammed Farah Adid. The raid was to last no longer than 1 hour. However, this quickly shifted when Somali militia, heavily armed with assault rifles, machine guns, and RPGs, shot down multiple UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters. The event would become known as Black Hawk Down. As the number of armed Somalis increased into tens and thousands, U.S. Rangers and special operators, heroically defending multiple crash sites, quickly found themselves pinned down and surrounded. This 19-hour standoff lasted throughout the night. Using AH-6 Little Birds and additional coalition ground forces, many of whom went back into the city multiple times throughout the standoff, U.S. forces repelled repeated attempts by Somalis to overrun American positions. Task Force Ranger and supporting coalition forces valorously defended their position until morning, when armored vehicles extracted the last American forces from the city. Ultimately, 19 U.S. soldiers were lost in the most intense, sustained urban combat since the Vietnam War. The Mogadishu Mile refers to a route that was ran by the American Rangers and Delta Force soldiers from a helicopter crash site to a rallying point held by the 10th Mountain Division on National Street during the Battle of Mogadishu. Originally, the Rangers were to utilize the convoy as cover for extraction by running along a column of Humvees and armored personnel carriers. The convoy failed to understand the vehicles were for cover, leaving the Rangers and Delta Forces soldiers exposed. The Mogadishu Mile ensued as the remaining members of the Task Force Rangers would exfil on foot, without support and with very little ammunition. The events conducted during this week serve as a commemoration of the selfless service of the soldiers killed during Operation Gothic Serpent on the 3rd and 4th of October 1993. To demonstrate the physical toughness and winning spirit of our soldiers, one of the events conducted was the Iron Squad Challenge. The challenge consisted of 8 teams with 5 members per team, who collectively competed in a physically demanding and exhausting gauntlet of grit. This grueling challenge consisted of a 1.5-mile litter carry, 160 T push-ups, 375 rowers, 15 rounds of a 25-meter, 90-pound sled drag, 30 leg tucks, 30 pull-ups, traverse bars, the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy's obstacle course, 19 burpees, and finally a victory lap around the NCO Academy. The top 3 teams will now be recognized for their determination to endure such a challenge with the fastest times. Major General Claire A. Gill, assisted by CW5 Michael A. Corsero, and Command Sergeant Major Kirk R. Coley, will now present the awards to the winning teams. Please hold your applause until all awards have been presented. Placing third with the final time of 68 minutes and 20 seconds, 111th Aviation Regiment led by First Sergeant DeFio. Placing second with a final time of 58 minutes and 40 seconds, Alpha Company 113th, led by Drill Sergeant Cuevas. And the winning team with the final time of 45 minutes and 13 seconds, the NCO Academy Juggernauts, led by Staff Sergeant Hoover. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce today's host, the 18th Commanding General of the United States Army Aviation Center of Excellence and Fort Novosel, Major General Claire A. Gill.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. October 3rd, we're going to talk about some folks that perished, gave the last full measure of their devotion to duty. And it's a somber occasion, but I'm reminded of a quote that I believe was from General Patton that said, "We shouldn't mourn the fact that these men perished, but we should celebrate that they lived." And the example of the folks that we're going to talk about and that Kenny Thomas is going to talk about today should be a reason for us to celebrate days and occasions like this today. So welcome, Congressman Moore, Mayor Cooper. I don't know, do we have any Gold Star families here today? To all our Gold Star families, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here, and thank you for what you and your family have done. And then to families, soldiers, and friends of Fort Novosel, welcome home, welcome to the home of Army Aviation. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us today to remember the courage and sacrifice of our soldiers who fought and many who died in the Battle of Mogadishu in October of '93. Words can't adequately capture our appreciation for what these soldiers did and what they gave, but our sense of pride and appreciation for their accomplishments is immeasurable. What we do here today in remembrance of them is only a small reflection of our overall gratitude for their sacrifice. Well, I have the privilege today of introducing our guest speaker, Staff Sergeant Kenny Thomas. He was a soldier in the Battle of Mogadishu, popularized by the book and the movie by Mark Bowden called Black Hawk Down. It's the soldiers who fought and died in this battle, like Kenny Thomas and his comrades, who we honor today. Well, in the summer of 1993, then Staff Sergeant retired, Kenny Thomas was deployed to Mogadishu, Somalia with the 3rd Ranger Battalion as part of an elite Special Operations Package, Task Force Ranger. Their mission, as you heard, was to find and capture a warlord named Mohammed Farah al-Adid. On the 3rd of October, Kenny and his Rangers, other special operators, and 10th Mountain Division soldiers distinguished themselves in an 18-hour firefight. 19 19 Americans gave their lives and 78 were wounded. Staff Sergeant Thomas was awarded the Bronze Star for valor for his actions that day, and Sergeant First Class Randy Shugart and Master Sergeant Gary Gordon were posthumously awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. After Mogadishu, Sergeant Thomas volunteered for one more enlistment in the Army. He became an assistant team leader for a 6-man Ranger reconnaissance team. Leaving the military in 1998 and drawing from his experiences on the battlefield, Kenny pursued a country music career. He's also an Emmy-winning producer, a best-selling author, a motivational speaker, and the founder of Downrange Advanced Leadership School. As a motivational speaker, he inspires people to achieve greatness by stressing the importance of outstanding leadership at every level. His message epitomizes the Ranger motto, "Rangers lead the way." In his music career, Kenny became an award-winning country music recording artist and songwriter in Nashville. He and his band Cornbread were featured in the movie Sweet Home Alabama. He continued to serve our troops with regular USO tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. Additionally, Kenny's an analyst on major news networks. He served as an advisor for the movie We Were Soldiers. He's been awarded the American Patriot Award for his dedicated work on behalf of our veterans and their families. A graduate of the University of Florida, Kenny is also proud of his appointment as a national spokesman for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. They provide college educations to the children of our special operations personnel killed in combat or training. Please join me this afternoon in a warm welcome for our guest speaker, Staff Sergeant Kenny Thomas.
All right, are you allowed to hug a general? I'm sorry. Y'all, thank you for being here and thank you for taking time out of your day, and most of all, thank you for asking me to come tell the story. The fact that after 30 years, people still want to hear it, it is an honor and a privilege, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I can promise you the only reason I'm still around by the grace of God was because of the men he put on my left and my right. So anytime I get an opportunity to tell the story, absolutely, I will be there. And I'll tell you how this one kind of came about was Mike Durant, who is, from your world, he's an Army aviator. He called me up and was like, "Kenny, I can't be there. Can you go in my place?" I'm like, "Have they ever had a ground guy over there?" And he's like, "I don't know, but you can tell the story better than anyone else." I'm like, "All right, I'm going." So I just want you, I got no slides or presentation. I really don't even have any notes. And there's a reason. There's a reason for that. There's no reason I don't have any PowerPoint presentations. First of all, if I'd been in the Air Force, I would have brought PowerPoint presentations. But I was in the Army, and we didn't have a budget. And so they taught you just to tell stories if you want to make a point. And I think what I want to talk about in the short amount of time that I have here is I'm going to tell a couple stories about some of the guys and the things that they did to try and illustrate this. And this is what I hope you get out of it. From my time wearing the boots, the most lasting lesson that I got was the value of the people they put around you. And then we all know, surround ourselves with great people. And we certainly have that in the special operations world. You guys got it right here. But what we tend to forget is that we're the great people other folks surrounded themselves with. And so I think one of my lasting lessons that I've learned is you got to live up to that. Living up to the folks that you look to your left and your right and you think, man, Dan Zalata, Mike Durant, Stan Wood, these guys are all people that I looked up to, and if I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with them, I still got to live up to that. So that's what I hope you get out of this. So I'm gonna. You guys got a good briefing of what the mission was. I'm gonna condense everything super fast because I want to get to the one story I think I can do in this amount of time. So we had been sent into Mogadishu to get a deed, and we had been in country almost 3 months. Most people don't know, we had already run 44 raids into the city trying to get this guy, and when people don't want to be found, they're hard to find, as you know. It took us 10 years to get bin Laden down. So he goes into hiding. If we couldn't get him, we had a most wanted list. And after 44 raids, we were still pretty short. We'd only gotten 2 people. And so we were smoked. If we weren't running raids, we were training in the sand dunes. So they finally on a Sunday gave us the day off, and that was the 3rd of October, it was a Sunday. And I was writing a letter home to my mom. I was in shorts and flip-flops. Most of the guys were playing volleyball or doing what, you guys know, like the military is full of really squared away people, but there's some weirdos, like that dude sharpening his knife on the day. I stay away from that guy. So I was writing a letter home to my mom, and she still has the front end of the letter that I never finished. It just said, "Dear Mom, you would love it here in sunny Mogadishu. It looks just like Fort Lauderdale. Like, don't tell your mom what's going on over there." It was terrible. They were throwing mortar rounds at us every day. It was a bad place to be. And the guy walks out of the airplane hangar, and this is how the mission goes down. He just yells out, "Hey, everybody get it on, gear it up." And it, just like firefighters, the Air Force pilots scrambling to their jets from the movies, the same sort of thing. We all go running in, we're throwing in our gear. So we get the mission, and the mission's typical. It's a raid into the city. Now, we never knew if it was going to be a real one or not, because false alarms were pretty common, because the idea was if they could find one of the guys on our list and we could get there in 10 minutes, we had a chance of getting them. So this one was a go. So they came out, and really all that they gave us, if I had a slide, I would tell you, but they gave us an aerial photograph. They didn't even give us an aerial photograph of the target building. It was a building across the street from the target building. And so my platoon sergeant grabs the picture, he throws it on the ground. Sergeant Watson circles it with red ink. He goes, "All right, here's the target building right here. This way is north, and this is our corner of the building we're roping in on. Any questions?" And that was it. Now, you would think that, you got Delta operators and the 160th and Rangers, you're going to get all this high-speed intel. That's all you get. But you don't need a whole lot. That's just the play call. Because as you know, it's all about the preparation, that planning and the training and being ready when they say go, then you make it happen. So in the span of 10 minutes, we knew who we were after, how we were getting there. We had backup plans in place. We had rehearsed this thing over and over again, and everybody's going to the helicopter. Everybody knew exactly what was expected of them. So don't mistake that minimal time prepping with being poorly prepared. Huge difference. That's why we train every day out here. All right, so skip that. Follow me. So pretend this is north. If this is north, I'm going to orient you to my map. So north and north, east, west, south. The birds come in from the north of the city. The city's pretty big on the grid. It's about as big as Atlanta. So they're coming in from the north. They break off into 2 rows of birds. So one goes down this street, one goes down this street, 1 row of helicopters. The target building's in the middle. The only bad part about the mission that we weren't too thrilled about was it was 3 in the afternoon. So anybody want to take a guess why we don't like going in at 3:30 in the afternoon? Yeah, because they can see you, right? So they're bad guys, and they've been shooting at you for 3 months. And so we prefer, if we know they're going to shoot at you, we prefer they don't see you. That's why we like to go in at night. But I think they knew that the daytime was tactically a better thing for them to have this meeting. We can get there. So there's 2 guys two HVTs on the most wanted list. So that's what we're going in after. So here's how it goes down. First bird's into the little birds. The little birds are going to insert the Delta operators and then serve as gunships. Those guys are so maneuverable and so good, they could come right down the street and land it on the roof or at the front door. And then we would put the little benches on the skids so that the operators, all they had to do was they're going to be like the SWAT team, basically. So they just step off and they're in. So it's a really quick insertion. And then they're gonna collapse the building. It's a 3-story building. So they're gonna go on the roof, on the bottom, and then they're gonna get whatever they can get inside. Does that make sense? All right, so somebody's got to cover them in the street, and that's what the Rangers were gonna do. We're coming in on the Blackhawks. Blackhawks were too big to land in the streets, so we're gonna have to hover and rope. So we're gonna rope in at corner. So this is the building, this way is north. It's gonna be corner number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is corner number 3. I'm coming in on corner number 3, Super 6-6, that's our bird. Stan Wood is the pilot. Sergeant Thomas, as the man in the left side of the aircraft, you will be facing the target building, and so you have 2 responsibilities. The first one is to identify the target building and then concur with the crew chief. And I'm just thinking, no problem, I'll know it when I see it, because it'll be the building circle with red ink, right? And I'm looking out. And because remember, you get this bias in your head of what you think it's going to be. And at 100 feet off the deck, you got 8 helicopters rolling down the middle of this dirty city. There's nothing but brown out. You couldn't see a thing. And I'm looking through the windshield of the aircraft, and I can see Chief Fuller talking to Chief Wood. And I'm thinking, well, they must be talking about where the target building is. And I grabbed the headset. This is exactly what I heard when I grabbed the headset. Stan, can you see anything? Negative, man, I can't see squat. And Siegler asked me, he goes, what'd they say? I'm like, we're good. Like, Don't tell them the pilots. I don't know how Stan did. To me, it was magic, because when that man flared the aircraft, he goes, whoa! I look out and I'm like, oh, there's the target building. I could see the operators are on the roof already. There's the group that was going into the front door has already gone in. I look across the street. I can see bird number 1 flaring. Bird number 2 is back there. They've already got their ropes deployed. And I can't see behind me. I can't see 4. And as you know, 4 was the one that got inserted a block too soon and that Blackburn fell out of. My second job is, now that I've concurred with the crew chief and Ned Norton's yelling at me, go, ropes, ropes, ropes. So the reason I'm in charge of deploying the ropes, you will be in charge of deploying the ropes, because I went to a 3-day course. I got certified, they signed it, and I am now rope master qualified. Y'all, I'm fixing to rope master qualify all y'all. 90 feet of coiled rope, it's attached to the boom right here. Here's your job, 3 days of training for this. Go. That was it. So, and everybody's, but there's ropes go out both sides of the road. So just for the folks who are, I don't want to talk over your head, but you're not rappelling. So rappelling way too much gear, too much time. The fast roping is just get you to and it's a great tool. You grab it with your gloves and you go. And I used to tell my guys, hey man, if you want to get to the ground really fast, don't grab the rope. I don't care, but I need you to do your job when you get to the ground. So that was what the rope was. And I'm the last guy out of the bird. As I reach for the rope, my crew chief was Ned Norton, and he's yelling at me. Norton's got this sticker across his helmet that's red, white, and blue, and he's put no fear on it. That's what Norton's yelling at me. He's going, no fear. Like, you can hear gunfire already going. And I stop in the door. I go, what? And he's like, no fear. And Norton hears me. He goes, screw you. You know, like, and I remember catching up with him like a week later. We were in the chow hall. I said, hey, Sergeant Norton, what was up with that whole no fear thing? He's like, oh, man, Sergeant Thomas, I thought that would motivate you guys. I was like, shut up, dude, you flew away. Like, so we get to the corner of the building, and I'm going to condense this one pretty good. We wrapped that mission up fast. Like, and I don't know if y'all saw the movie, but contrary to what the movie was, the Delta operators never had to fire a shot because they were in that room so quickly that the bad guys just threw their arms up. So we had 2 HVTs that were on our most wanted list, were in that building. And each one of them had 12 bodyguards. So you got like 24 people they bring out of the building, and then the trucks down the street come driving up, throw all the bad guys on the trucks. Trucks drive away, and they're heading back to the airfield. And there's about 80 of us left on the target building, Delta operators and Rangers. And we're just waiting for our ride. And then just like that is when everything shifted and everything changed. The mission was done, y'all. I remember looking at my watch. It was 15:35. 35 minutes from go to exfil, it was a successful raid, and we had the bad guys, and they were driving away. And as I watched the last truck turn the corner back to the airfield, that's when the first helicopter went down. And everybody that had a radio on their hip, it was all in the same freak, so that's where you heard somebody start yelling, there's a Black Hawk going down. And we all look up, and remember, this is north. It was Super 6-1, so there were 6-1 all the way through 6-8. So if you hear me use that term, it's just a call sign for one of the Black Hawks. 6-1's going down. Cliff Walcott and Bill Briley are the 2 pilots. On board are 4 Delta Force snipers and 2 crew chiefs. 8 guys in that bird are going down. So here we go. And we all watched it happen, and I can describe to you what we were feeling because you felt the same thing. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what you were feeling. You can, because it's the minute life has kicked you in the gut and hits you super hard, like you didn't see it coming. And I know somebody in here, maybe you've lost a family member, or you've gotten that phone call that you didn't want to get from the doctor, like, hey, we got the results from your test back and you're not going to be happy about this. And we're all looking at it and we're saying the same thing. We all say the same thing in those moments because your brain is trying to catch up to what your eyes and your ears are telling you. I can't believe that's happening because it's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to get shot down by third world thugs. That's the 160th up there. That's the best pilot there is. That's Captain Kirk of Army Aviation. How is that guy getting shot down? And we're all sitting there thinking the same thing. It's not supposed to happen, y'all, but it is happening. And the sooner we can come to grips with that fact that it's happening to us, the sooner we also come to the understanding that it's happening to people on our left and our right. And then you got a choice to make. And then you guys have done enough courses in your life and enough of these PLDCs and BNOCs and ANOCs and all your leadership courses to know that leadership's a choice you make on a daily basis. It's not just about your one set of ethos. It's a daily choice. And when we need you, when it really needs you to step up and take charge of situations and do the thing that you're supposed to be doing in the service of others, it's when it gets hard. And ain't nobody needs help in here when it's easy. You have a choice to make in that moment. Like, who do you want to be? And I'm very careful with what I say to audiences when I talk about that moment, because it's too easy to come in here and say, hey, everybody in here better, when it gets hard, do the right thing. Just do the right thing. That's too easy. It's too broad, because we have too many different cultures, too many different thought processes, too many different, unless every morning you stood up shoulder to shoulder and you recited the Ranger Creed. And you yelled it out loud, and you said it over and over and over again. And that's just the way the brain works, y'all. It's like, if you say something enough, you begin to believe it. And when you believe something, then you start living it. And you can call it brainwashing if you want. And I'm like, heck yeah, it is. It's positive. We're really good at it in the military. There's a reason why we do these things over and over again. And if you say something like, I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy, and you believe it with your heart, it's not just something you recite. As soon as that happens, you're going to move towards it. Fortunately, we had a plan in place. Fortunately, we had practiced this scenario. It wasn't an exact scenario, but we did have a plan in place. So the vehicles are going to move, and they're going to get to us. And then we, on the target building, there's about 70 of us. The mission's changed. Now we got to get to that crash site. And remember, this is north. It's only 3 blocks to the east and a left turn north. So we're moving out on foot. I could tell you a lot of stories in that movement to the turn, but when my squad was the last squad to make that turn, we were the last guy. We were a little behind the power curve because we had one of our guys got wounded. And we turned the corner, and that's when, if you can imagine 6-1 has crashed over here in a small alleyway just off to the right. You could see it right there, but it was pretty tight. It wasn't a wide street like America. It was kind of more of an alley-ish type thing, about 2 blocks. Now you got 80 guys on both sides of the street, and you have the CSAR team, so the search and rescue guys were inserted by that very same bird that's sitting over there, Razor's Edge. Dan Gelada was my good friend Dan was the guy who put them in. If you ever get a chance to see Dan's story, and if you can ever get access to that footage, watch that insertion. He's got guys on the rope. The CSAR, within a minute of Super 6-1 crashing into the ground, Dan and Razor's Edge 6-8 is over there. He's roping in the CSAR team, and he gets hit with an RPG. Now, as a pilot, his first instinct was to pull away from that and get out of there. His crew chief starts yelling at him, there's guys on the ropes. And if you watch, he settles the bird back down, and he waits there and just takes it, like a horse in the rain, man, and takes it. And gets everybody off the rope, and then he crash lands back at the airfield. When we turned the corner, that was so far over, long before they ever made a movie, y'all, they called that moment, they called it Hollywood, because we had been in a couple gunfights, and they were over so fast, because, well, first rule of a gunfight, I don't know if you guys know, the first rule of a gunfight, don't get in it, all right? Second rule is, shut it down immediately. Gain fire superiority through violence of action. In other words, assault through it. This works really well in gunfights. It doesn't work in relationships. Please don't take that home with you. Took hundreds of hours of counseling to deprogram that one from me, y'all. There was so much gunfire going on that we could not overwhelm them. And they told us in retrospect that in that moment, we were outnumbered already 10-1. So there's 100 guys here in this 2-block radius. You got 1,000 insurgents with weapon systems. The pilots will all tell you, they will all tell you that there was a lot more than 1,000 people. Now, I never saw 10 guys charging with weapon systems, but you did see twosies and threesies everywhere. It was still training to me. For a minute, it was training where, I've got my guys, I'm giving them sectors of fire, I'm moving up and down, trying to do the communication over the chaos. I'm trying, why is this taking so long? What's going on? And they're like, Sergeant Watson, he's talking to somebody, and he gets back and says, hey, one of the pilots, his body's crushed in the wreckage. So Cliff Walcott, the Kevlar plates crushed around him, and they couldn't get him out. We can't get Cliff out. And he says, just hold what you got. It's going to be about 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So I'm telling all my guys, you got 15 minutes. It felt like it was training up until it wasn't. And when it's not training is when people start getting hurt. And it's a different level of reality. And as many years as I've had to think this one through and tell this story, I've never really come up with a great way to compare it and say, well, this is what it feels like because when someone gets hit and goes down. Because it's so basic. And it's not what you think. It's not like there's not like this terror and this horror and this, this upset and oh my gosh, the guy's down. Like the first guy I saw get hit was a Delta operator, Earl Fillmore. Earl was a super soldier. And when I looked over at Earl, I could tell you from right here, I didn't have to check his pulse. I could tell you from right here, I don't even know what that was. It was like a wax figure that sort of resembled a guy I once knew. And I don't know if you've ever been a believer that there's a soul in the body and the soul goes someplace else when the body dies. I would say, yep, you've never been there when somebody dies because that didn't even look like the guy anymore. And it also dawned on me that now my mission had become very, very clear and very simple, y'all. It's very simple. I can't let that happen to my guys. That was it. It wasn't even about a crash site that was 2 blocks up the street. Like what historically they'll tell you in a paragraph, here was the battle. It was no longer about the greater glory of the 75th Ranger Regiment or the 3rd Ranger Battalion. It wasn't about America or freedom or freeing the starving people of Somalia. It was very simple. It was just all you're fighting for in that moment is so that doesn't happen. I don't care how far back you go in the history of the American fighting force, the American soldier. You go back to Gettysburg. And you stick a microphone in front of those guys, boys on both sides of the line, and you ask them, hey, what are you fighting for? And nobody's going to tell you I'm fighting to preserve a nation. No one's going to tell you I'm fighting against the atrocities of the institution of slavery. No one is going to tell you that I'm fighting for states' rights. You go talk to those guys in the Battle of the Bulge, they are not going to tell you, oh, I'm fighting against Hitler and all the atrocities against the Jewish people and world order. You go talk to my dad's generation, he's not going to tell you he was fighting against the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. And none of us were fighting insurgents, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or ISIS at any point in our careers. The only thing you fight for is each other. That's it, each other. And that's why when I tell you it becomes so basic and base, like it was very simple. I didn't even have an issue with the dude downrange shooting at us. Really what I wanted to do was throw the red flag at him, but hey, stop. Like, stop. All right, here. The stories that I could tell you that happened in those moments when people started going down, because remember there's only 100 of us, and now you got these big gaps that start happening in the line. So you got you guys spread out every 5 or 10 meters in some sort of cover. There wasn't any concealment. So what do you do when your machine gunner goes down and then you throw Erico on the gun and Erico gets behind the gun and Erico gets hit and then you grab Erico out of the street and now there's a squad leader behind the gun. It's 60. That's no good. That's not where a squad leader is supposed to be. And you're trying to figure out what to do and people are going down. And there's one, I'm gonna try and roll through this story and give it justice to give you an example of the links that we will go to for you, because you told me you would be there for me. I don't have to hang out with you and be your best buddy. I don't even have to like you, really. But by God, I made a promise to you, and you made a promise to me, and I'm gonna be there. Here's the one story I want to tell you. When 6-1 goes down, somebody's got to come into the pattern. So Mike Durant comes in 6-4. Mike was supposed to be your speaker, but they sent me instead. So second string. But I'm pretty good at it, I think. I'm doing good. All right. So Mike comes into the pattern. Mike doesn't even have his bearings yet. He's trying to figure out, remember, he's holding north of the city. They bring him in. He gets hit with an RPG and crashes about a mile over that way. You now have 2 birds on the ground simultaneously, and this is where the confusion starts setting in. Because the guys on the vehicles, remember the ones I told you that drove away with the prisoners? They still hadn't gotten to us. And they should have been there already because they're on vehicles. They should have gotten there, but they're getting so hammered out in the streets that they were so discombobulated. At some point, somebody actually realized that there was 2 directions being given, one to crash site 2, one to crash site 1. Someone had to clear the airways and say, hold up, stop. The only people, everybody was committed to crash site 1. The only people that could get over there was one more helicopter left, and that was 6-7, it was Chacon. His 2 crew chiefs, and on board were 3 Delta Force operators, Brad Holling, Gary Gordon, Randy Shugart. The 3 of them made a plan. They saw the crash. They saw Mike Durant. So miraculously, everybody on 6-4 survived the crash. Everybody. They were in bad shape, but they survived it. If you've never seen the video feed, go find it somewhere and watch it. There were 200, and I mean 200, more than what's in this room right now, moving to that crash site with weapon systems. These 3 men knew what they had to do. They made a plan. We can hold that crash site. It's only, the airfield's not even a minute over there. They got to be able to send some people. We got someone en route. All right, we can hold it. No, denied. Can't do it. No, well, hang on, sir. You don't understand. These guys are not going to make it if we don't send somebody. Denied. Finally, Gary Gordon gets on the radio, and he explains the situation. The last words any of us ever heard Gary say over the radio was, because they asked him, Gary, do you know what you're asking us? Because they were putting the guy making the decisions up in, Colonel Matthews up in the bird, was in the hot seat. And he knew that if we don't send somebody in, these guys probably won't make it. But if we send these guys in, they probably won't make it. And Gary Gordon, the last words he says was, hey, sir, we're their only hope. We're their only hope. And I can promise you, Gary Gordon probably didn't even know Mike Durant's name. He may have known his face just because they were in on all the briefings. It wasn't his buddy and it wasn't his pal. It wasn't even the same unit. But that was somebody who needed help. And I told you I would be there for you. And I am here in the service of others. All these cool guy, all-star schools that they send you to, Halo School, Scuba School, Combat Diver School, blowing up things, and all of that. It's not about my free agent draft so that I can go up my value and my self-worth. It's about me being better to serve my team. The better I can serve my team, the better they can serve the mission. My mission, my people, myself, right? Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart, as the bird inserted, it took a RPG. The RPG actually goes through the cockpit or through the cargo hold, takes Brad Holling's leg right off, so Brad's out of the fight. Crew chief's down, so Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart are on their own. They move for 200 meters to this second crash site, and they fight to hold off those 200 guys until they ran out of ammo. The only person that survived that crash that day was Mike Durant. He got taken prisoner, and we got him back 11 days later. And if Mike were here and he would tell you the same thing. By the grace of God, the only reason I'm still around is because of the people he put around me that day. And if Gary were here and you could ask him, hey man, why would you have done that? That was a terrible mission. Like, in fact, you got told no twice, but you still asked to go. Why would you do that? And I know what Gary would have said, because they would have done it for me. They were both awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's the only time in the history of the Medal of Honor where 2 guys, if you read the citation, it's the exact same write-up for both people. Each other is enough, y'all. And I'm telling you right now, where the most poignant place you will ever learn that lesson is right here wearing the boots. When you get out, I think most of America wants that feeling of knowing they've got a sense of purpose and that I'm here for you and you're here for me, because it frees us up. Like, we don't have to save ourselves. And saving ourselves is exhausting. Take that with you when you punch out. Take that service to one another and knowing that you're part of something bigger than just yourself. Take that with you, because the world needs it desperately. I'm going to condense real quick because I want to talk about my friend Kenny, who's back there. There's another Kenny back there, was in the 10th Mountain that night. We had so many wounded guys. By the time it got dark, out of the 100 guys on the ground and in those vehicles, 78 people are already wounded. We just didn't have enough people to move them out. And we had to fight and hold the position. Now, the pilots had our back all night long. It kind of slowed down at night. We didn't have to fight a ton through the night, except for those guys on the convoys. The 10th Mountain guys tried to come. Most of them weren't even they were combat engineers. Like they were supposed to be guarding food shipments. They didn't have Abrams, they didn't have MRAPs, they didn't have Bradleys. They had flatbed trucks. And they threw sandbags on the back and they came for us. And they fought all through the night. Now, this is a good lesson. Why did it take them so long to get to us? Because the enemy gets a vote. Remember that one. We always underestimate those guys that we're up against. It's a smarter enemy out there now. They're doing things with better equipment and better training. The enemy gets a vote, and they're always going to try and derail you. Now, when you're in the military, it's really easy to know who the enemy is. This guy's shooting at you, right? Out here in the real world, sometimes it gets a little tough. What are the things that are up against me? At 4 something in the morning, those guys finally pushed through. We loaded all of our wounded guys on the vehicles, and then the vehicles are going to drive away. It became very clear, like there's no more room. There's no more room on the ark. So there's only 30 of us left. Now, the sergeant major grabbed us all around. Remember, if you go back to your basic planning, what are the 5 W's? It's all we really need when we got to make a hasty plan. He gathers us all around. And he says, all right, who, what, why, when, and where? Who? Us, right here. You got Delta, Rangers, a couple Air Force guys. Who? Us. What? We're going to exfil out of here. Where are we going? Everybody remember where the soccer stadium is, right? Yeah, he goes, it's about a mile down the road. And my buddy Randy's over there going, lying. And he says, and he goes, what do you want, Sergeant Thomas? I'm like, Sergeant Major, why don't we just go to the parade field and let the helicopters come get us? And he looks at me and he goes, Sergeant Thomas, there's no more helicopters. And in 10 minutes, the sun comes up and these yahoos start shooting at us again. You got any more questions? I'm like, negative, Sergeant Major. So what I didn't know was that out of the 8 birds that went in, 5 are on the ground. So you got 6'8" got shot inserting the team, 6'1", 6'4", 6'7", and Stan Wood, my guy, 6'6", when he came in to resupply us in the middle of the night, Stan said he was on station for like 20 seconds kicking out IVs and ammo and night vision. He said he stopped counting when he got back to the airfield at 96 bullet holes in the transmission alone. So there were no more helicopters. So we're running out of the city. If you ever find yourself in a situation, I call it the suck meter. So when your suck meter starts tacking out, because it's gonna go beyond where your training has put you, and you're gonna get to this point, you're gonna start making mistakes. And you better hope that you've got people around you that will keep their head on a swivel. And on that run out of the city, I can tell you people started making they started doing things we shouldn't have done. I saw guys running down the road shooting at windows like this. Bam, bam, bam. Like, what are you going to hit running down the road shooting like that? You can hit 2 things. Well, jack and squat is what you're going to hit. And I saw the captain stops because no one's on the other side of the street to cover for him, and he's on the radio, and now we're all vulnerable. He's got 6 guys backed up. I'm like, sir, push across the road. What are you doing? Move. And over my shoulder, Private First Class David Floyd. Sergeant Thomas, look out. Go. Fires that machine gun off from like here to that little Huey right there. None of us saw it. None of us, because we're all standing there staring at the captain, yelling at him. A dude steps out with an RPG, and another guy was fixing to reload. Now, I don't know if David hit that guy, but I'm telling you, all 6 of us sorted that out pretty quick. But that guy got the shot off, and the rocket didn't even have time to arm, but it goes. I remember looking back at Floyd, wishing I had something really cool and leaderish to say, and all I said was, good shot, Floyd. He's like, roger that, Sergeant. And he runs over here and he goes, takes a knee to cover for the captain and goes, you can move across the street now, sir. And as if to say, I don't know, decades of experience of 6 guys on the wall, none of us were doing what we should have been doing. So remember that, y'all. Just because you've been doing something for many moons doesn't mean that the people around you don't know what they're doing better than you. Surround yourself and train them as good as you can. David Floyd saved 6 guys that day. If you asked David that morning who the weak link was, he would have said what any one of us says. Not me. I'm not the weak link. He would tell you the exact same thing that Gary Gordon or Randy Shugart would tell you. I am a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. He said things like, gallantly will I show the world. He said things like, I will shoulder more than my fair share of the task. Whatever it may be, 100% and then some. Readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. He said things like that, and he believed it. And I don't know what I don't, some of y'all are in transit, some of y'all are in units, some of you aren't in units. Like, I don't know what you tell yourselves every day. I don't know what your creed is every morning. But if you need a great one, I'm going to give you one that's on every special operations unit I've ever worked with. You go to the Ranger Regiment, it's on the walls. The 160th guys have it up in their hangar. All the teams up at Camp Liberty have it over there. You go down to Eglin, all the Air Force kids have it, the PJs and the TAC-Ps. I was just out in San Diego with all the Oakley sunglasses and the cool guy hair and the tattoos of small sea mammals. They have it on theirs too, and it's an Old Testament scripture. It's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 8, Isaiah 6:8. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who will go for us? And whom shall we send? And I answered, here, my Lord, send me. They should have called the put me in coach scripture. Send me. That's exactly what all of y'all done. Never lose sight of that, because in the day-to-day of the grind of getting up at 5:30 in the morning and working half days till 5:30 in the afternoon, it sucks. There's a suck in there. But never lose fact, send me. Because you're the 1% that's doing it right now. And if you don't, who will? You're going to have someone else would have to do it. Here am I, Lord, send me. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to play you a song. And the song I'm going to do, I figured it would come to me when I got ready to play it. Will you grab that for me, buddy? I think what I want to do, there's Tony Renderer, the CG and I were talking earlier about our friend Tony Renderer, and I went to Tony's retirement ceremony. He was a little bird pilot in the 160th in this battle. And Tony talked about what an honor it was to serve with the men and women on his left and his right. And he said, it was my privilege to hold the line for my time in. And he goes, and now it's your turn to hold the line. And he was talking to all the people that are out there. And sounds great. Thank you, Magic Man behind the wall. So I went home that day and I thought about it, and we got a pretty decent song out of it, but it works for this moment, and I'm gonna play it for you. It's called Hold On. You don't get tuning on the album, by the way, so. And he goes, blood on their knuckles and mud on their face. They fought back to the huddle for one last play. Quarterback says, boys, you gotta buy me some time. I'll get us there, but you gotta hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. You give it your best, I'll give it mine, and we're gonna win this together if we hold the line. Got his elbows on the table and his head in his hands. 20 years on a job he never thought would ever end. But his wife says we'll make it, oh baby, we're gonna be just fine. And we'll get through this together. We're gonna hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. You give it your best, you know the sun's gonna shine. And we'll get through it together if we hold the line. You gets choked up when the bugle plays. He remembers the battle like it was just yesterday. He knows he owes his life to the ones left behind, and for their sacrifice he will hold the line, hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side, in a world going crazy in these troubled times. We gotta all stand together, we gotta hold the line. In a world going crazy, yeah, in these troubled times, gotta all stand together. Hold the line, hold the line. All right, you guys. Yeah, Mike Durant wasn't going to do that for you. Ha. God bless you for what you do, and never, ever take that for granted, the people that you got on your left, on your right. And you always got an opportunity to do better for those people. If you're coming up in your career, and the only advice I got for you, take care of your troops. You take care of your people, they'll take care of you. And you know, remember that you're the 1%. And one of these days, I can't tell you when and I can't tell you where, but I can promise you that call's coming. And you will be asked to get it on, and it'll be your turn. And you will be as good as you prepared yourself to be, but you'll be as good as the people around you. So make sure that if you're in charge of folks, lift them up and get them solid so that you know in those moments they're as great as they can be. Because we're as good as our weakest link. All right, guys, thank you again, sir. God bless you guys. Rangers, lead the way.
Come on down here. Wow. You ready?
Yes, sir.
You want me to go? I go, then you go, you go, then I go.
You can go, sir.
All right. We don't need to do a whole lot of formal things here to say thank you to Kenny for doing this. Come on up here, Kenny. We'll stand in front. We'll get a photo op here. Man, if that don't light your fire, then your wood's wet, right? And I will tell you this. I love Mike Durant. I've heard him talk. I don't think Mike Durant does that, right? So I don't think you were second string. I think we got the first string. I think Kenny speaks to the essence of who we are. Many of you have done it. Many of you are doing it. And frankly, there's a couple young ladies over here that maybe someday they'll do it. And that's fight for each other. And that you can take that in a literal sense. You can take it in a figurative sense. We can be talking about combat, the high end of thing that we all train and prepare for. Or you can talk about what you do at the house. You can talk about what you're doing in the community and what you're doing in your schools. But one thing I'm very confident is everybody in this room understands the concept that Kenny talked about holding the line. So thanks, Kenny. On behalf of all of us, thank you for coming down here. Thank you for spending your time with us. I mean, I know you got things to do, but on behalf of all of us here at Fort Novosel, the Army Aviation Center, Army Aviation, and our community here in the Wiregrass, thanks for spending some time and teaching us today. So thanks, Kenny.
This is awesome. Thank you.
We'll hold it here. Come on. Hey, Mike, come on. Come in closer here. All right, we're going to transition to a little more of the formal portion of today's ceremony, but thanks, Kenny.
Thanks for that. I'll go.
At this time, please remain standing for the roll call of the fallen, a moment of silence, 21 gun salute, and the playing of taps. Chief Warrant Officer 4, Raymond Frank. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Clifton Wolcott. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Donovan Briley. Staff Sergeant Thomas Field. Staff Sergeant William Cleveland. Master Sergeant Gary Gordon. Master Sergeant Tim Martin. Sergeant First Class Earl Fillmore. Sergeant First Class Matt Rierson. Sergeant First Class Randy Shughart. Staff Sergeant Daniel Bush. Sergeant Casey Joyce. Sergeant Dominic Pilla. Sergeant Lorenzo Ruiz. Corporal Jamie Smith. Specialist James Cavaco. Private First Class Richard Kowalewski. Private First Class James Martin, Jr. Sergeant Cornell Houston. Please remain standing while we observe a moment of silence. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, while we continue to keep the fallen heroes in our hearts, thank you for attending to reflect and honor the sacrifices of the fallen and the heroics of the survivors. It is their example and legacy that brings us inspiration to continue to serve our country with bravery and distinction. This concludes the commemoration. Above the best, fly Army.